have an incredible guest today, Mark Collins, and he has freedom for life. You may have imposter syndrome. You may have anxiety about life. You may be dealing with certain stressful situations. Well, we're going to kind of dive into a lot of those things and why that may be happening.
My own journey of transformation, really trying to figure out how to have that person you believe you are on the inside show up on the outside. Confidence and assurance and passion and fulfillment in the things that you really believe that you can have an impact on. So
what are 2 or 3 traits in people that tend to have them be more successful financially?
One is drive, of course, a desire to be more than where you're at. And second is really a willingness to go there. One of the pivotal times of my transformation, what I call the life mastery journey it was when my wife and I lost our twin daughters.
Hey everybody, coming on in. It's Justin Brennan with another amazing podcast, Abundance to Give. I have an incredible guest today, Mark Collins, and he has freedom for life. And really where I was kind of reading about and learning about what he does and how he's taken people that, look, you may have imposter syndrome. You may have anxiety about life. You may be dealing with certain stressful situations and you just don't feel like you can get to the level you want to get and live the life you're really looking for. Well, we're going to kind of dive into a lot of those things and why that may be happening. And then Mark can kind of give his plans and ideas of how you can get through some things that you may be dealing with personally. And then if you want to take it to the next step, Mark's a great person to reach out to. So how you doing, Mark?
I'm doing great, Justin. How are you?
Well, I'm doing good. I'd say Happy New Year, but I don't want people to like timestamp this podcast. Another year is upon us, and I appreciate you taking the time to come on in for a little bit and kind of talk about what I think a lot of people battle with. And, you see, I call it Famebook and Instagram and all the social medias and all that stuff that people will live life through. And there was a great post from this guy, Rix. I think it was this morning or yesterday. He was on a beach in Thailand. And he says, "Isn't this beach one of the most beautiful beaches you've ever seen in your life?" ? And he says, "Well, if you just took it for the Instagram and for what you're seeing here, you wouldn't realize that behind the scenes, my life is a complete disaster." And then he kind of walks through that of what was going on, even though as this photo is being taken, like he just broke up with his girlfriend on the trip. I mean, all kinds of stuff.
Wow.
But he's like, if you just live by what you see and what people are posing on, you'd think it's the greatest thing since sliced bread. And there's a easy way to get the imposter syndrome. There's an easy way to feel less than or less worthy. So you can see it. And I think we're all guilty of it. But tell me, where did this journey start for you in wanting to serve others? Because it usually doesn't just happen by accident. Usually there's some self-fulfilling stuff involved.
No, I think that's really astute, Justin. For me, obviously, I tell people I created a course called Life Mastery in the book over my shoulder. Life Mastery, Living Life by Design, Not by Default. And I did those not because there was a great idea I had for somebody else's improvement. I know so much and I want to help you with your growth. It was really, like you said, it came from my own journey of transformation, really trying to figure out how to have that person you believe you are on the inside show up on the outside. Confidence and assurance and passion and fulfillment in the things that you really believe that you can have an impact on. So that was the guy that was on the inside. The guy on the outside was the one with imposter syndrome, with insecurity, fear of failure, all of those things that sometimes come along in people's lives, and they're trying to manage, not trying to master. And in that place, for me, it was really figuring out what transformation looks like, really becoming the person I was created to be, not trying to create habits to manage where I was at. And in being able to do that, being able to find some transformation, just like with you, I'm sure, Justin, when you find something you think is amazing or an experience you've gone through, you share it with people you care about. So that was the start of my journey, is sharing with people ideas, thoughts, concepts, and then really trying to figure out, this didn't look like a me thing. It looked like a we thing. Whether friends that were very successful or those that were just living day to day and trying to figure out how to do better. I saw a lot of those in a lot of the people that I had conversation with and was in relationships with. So I wanted to get something formalized to be able to have not just some ideas and concepts that maybe help for today, but a blueprint so that they can live it out. And so it brought me into this journey and really passionately living it out.
In your opinion, what are 2 or 3 traits in people that tend to have them be more successful financially, right? There's different levels of success. Financial success, 2 or 3 traits that you found.
Well, it's one is drive, of course. I don't want to say of course, because maybe everybody doesn't think so, but it's really the desire to be more than where you're at, whether it's in a business or an artistic endeavor. Really, it's really a drive to have more. And second is really a willingness to go there, meaning putting in the activity to get there. We all have dreams, I believe, and at some stage in everybody's life, they all have this vision of this would be an amazing life for me. But it really takes the hard work and being in business. My wife and I had businesses that we sold for a quality profit, and come to find out that there's hard work involved. It's not just the idea, it's not just the concept or the initiation, it's putting the work in when it's not working out, finding solutions when things aren't easy. And so I think that's another one as well. It's really people who are solution oriented, who are looking not to focus on the challenge and allowing that to derail them, but really looking towards what's the answer to this question? What's the solution that gets us, through this financial issue, through this developmental issue, whatever the thing is that you're having to learn. Come to find out in entrepreneurship and people who are successful, the one thing that I think is the secret most people don't know is that they don't have all the answers when they're walking into their whatever their endeavor is, but they have a willingness and a passion and a tenaciousness to find those answers as they go along.
Yep. Yeah. People ask me what I do for a living. I mean, when they say, oh, you do multifamily and you buy and sell apartments and do all this. I said, no. I said, I'm actually a professional problem solver. Like that's what I do, because we're all solving problems every day. And I tell people, I say, your income financially is directly related to the problems that you solve.
That's good.
Right? If you solve $1,000 problems, you'll get paid thousands of dollars. If you solve $100,000 problems, you will get paid hundreds of thousands. And if you solve $1 million problems, you get paid millions. That is how the world works. And so when people say like, oh, how do I get to that, millionaire or even 100,000-aire status or whatever it is? Well, you need to find problems that you can solve that are worth that to people. Because if you can solve them, I mean, you ask your question, why do neurosurgeons make the money they do? They solve big ass problems, right? Why do hedge fund managers make that kind of money? They're solving multi-million-dollar problems. Why does Elon Musk make? Because he's solving massive problems, right? And when you solve massive problems, you get paid massive amounts of money. If you solve simple problems, you get paid simple money, right? I don't want to target in, but if you're nothing against being a burger flipper at any of the fast food restaurants, but you're solving $15 problems, right? So you're going to get paid, $15 an hour, and that's just how the world works. So go solve big problems, and you'll get paid big money.
Yeah, absolutely. And the interesting thing, I think, Justin, the work that I do that I'm passionate about is that belief system that I am a person who solves those problems. Because I think one of those unspoken things that a lot of people don't realize is, with the work I do, I tell people who you think you are, you'll become. And so in that place, I am the sum total of the thoughts I have towards myself, the abilities I believe I have, that level I believe I can live. So those guys who were solving, or those ladies who were solving the $1 million problems, they didn't just get there. And it wasn't a skill set they gained that brought them there. It was first a belief system that believed that they could. And in that place, being able to do it. So really, to me, I love that part of unleashing that person. It really doesn't matter where you're at, right? Whatever level you've gained right now, my desire is to have you figure out, well, where am I going? As I tell people, what's the impact in the world that has your name on it? And how do we align your thoughts, your words, your actions, so that you start to see that person show up, in my case, that man show up, so that you can have the impact you're meant to have in the world.
So how have you dealt with negative thoughts? Because everybody deals with them, right? I deal with them, depending on time of day and what's going on. And you want to switch those negatives into positives, because things happen based upon, right? You think it happens, right? In weird ways.
Yeah.
So it's a self-fulfilling prophecy in a way. So what advice do you give to people who may be in a negative rut mentally?
Yeah.
Who are trying to energetically get the hell out of it?
Yeah, that's a great question, because I think there's two philosophies. There's the philosophy that I tried, and there's the philosophy that worked. And what I mean is the philosophy I tried was the thing I say is, a lot of times we take a mantra, we take an affirmation, we take, this generic, sentence or phrase that we want to be, right? It's an aspirational phrase. And when those negative thoughts come up, fear, imposter syndrome, insecurity, whatever the thing is, We bludgeon our thoughts into submission until they're at least silent long enough for those thoughts to go away and us to move forward in action and whatever the thing is that we're doing. So that's one way. And the challenge with that way is most of the time it doesn't work. And many times the only reason it works
What are you
is
talking
because
about?
many times the only reason it works is because it's a habit. And what I tell people is this: I'm not inviting you into change, because change is just habit formation. And the problem is the habit you use to get there, you have to use to stay there. My desire for people is transformation. I'm a person of faith, and I believe that we're not called to change, we're called to transform, not into somebody different, but into who we're created to be. And so with that in mind, any habit that I'm using, it really sounds more like exhaustion rather than freedom or transformation. So let's set that side aside and summarize it like this. You can deal with the fruit, anger, worry, insecurity, imposter syndrome, or you can deal with the root. The root's identity. It's not the thing that I'm going up against, because the thing that I'm going up against, whether it's some, whatever emotion it is really an indication of what my value statement is about myself. I'm insecure because I don't believe I am qualified or I'm capable, or you can use that for imposter syndrome, right? I'm anxious because I don't understand the outcome and I don't know if I can step up to the challenge of what is going to need for that outcome to be a positive, right? I'm worried with fear because I don't know that I have the capabilities to be able to succeed in this place. So it's not an emotion issue, it's an identity issue. So the identity issue is an identity statement. Who do you believe you are? I love what you said, Justin, because what I tell people is you're either living from who you're created to be or what your life has told you. And our life has told us things. Everybody has a history and experiences that have told them something. And even if we haven't in the past, we do today, because life happens on a daily basis. So I believe in affirmations, but I believe in affirmations that align with identity. For us, it's life mastery, and it really is summarized with this. Life mastery is you living from who you're created to be, not what your life has told you, not what your success has told you, but who you're created to be at the highest level you're created for in every area of their life. So with the people I work with, it is definitely mastering your thoughts, but it's coming from a place of, what are you telling yourself? Is it some idealized version of who you are, or is it the true version of who you were created to be? So in that place, those thoughts that come up won't continue to come up, because I continue to remind myself of who I am, not somebody I'm trying to measure up to, but the person I'm created to be. Me unleashed is the ultimate goal, not me trying to imitate somebody else.
Quick summary: how do you get somebody to speak the words of what they're created to be versus the idealized version? Because I think I talk to myself in the idealized version. Maybe a problem.
So by idealized, what I mean is this kind of these generic affirmations, right? I am a person of strength. I'm a man of strength. I'm a man of strength. Or whatever the thing is, that affirmation that you're trying to use. In general, they don't work because we don't believe it. But when you start to unpack it, for us, it's really, we don't unpack affirmations, and our transformational strategy is mastering your thoughts, words, and actions. But we don't start there. We start with identity. Many people start there because they think the thought is the issue, not the identity. But when you start to unpack identity, you start to really, for us, there's some tools that we use. Of one is an I am statement, celebration list, and an accomplishment list. The I am statement is, who are you apart from your outcomes? Because like I think you said early on in the conversation, a lot of times we look at our income, our possessions, our titles, our roles, and that's who I am. I have value because I've earned $1 million. I have this amazing thing, or whatever the thing is, right? But at the end of the day, you are who you are apart from your outcomes and apart from your past. So if I take the past aside, the challenge is the struggles, and I take your income on the things that you've believed are your identity, that man looking back in the mirror is who you are.
Okay. Yeah, because I think men tend to struggle with that, because you have this seesaw battle between masculinity and then sharing emotions, right? And men, there was a great quote one time that every day a man wakes up and he puts a rucksack of rocks on his back and goes out into the world to fight it. And most of the times he's not going to share the deepest, darkest emotions of pain and fear and inadequacy and less worthy and all that stuff, because in fear of that if they do, they're not going to be seen as masculine anymore, right? Yeah. And then there's the other side of that pendulum. It's like, no, show me every emotion you have. But then when that happens, people are like, oh, I don't look up to you as much anymore, or at least that's the perception. So what say you?
I think men are all of both. And the bravest men I know are the ones who will tackle their emotions authentically. But
Hmm.
the unsung heroes are those guys who do it when nobody's looking. So a lot of times, we'll share with our spouses, we'll share with our children, right? We'll be emotionally relevant and present with those. But when we're around the guys, we're not. And there's
Hmm.
appropriate times for that. A man in war is not going to be, looked upon as a leader if he's crying, having emotions. Not that crying is bad, but there's certain points where it's appropriate, right?
Yeah.
And it's an interesting story, Justin, because for me, really, if you'd asked me what one of the pivotal times of my transformation, what I call the life mastery journey was, it was when my wife and I lost our twin daughters.
Oh.
And if I could summarize it in for this conversation, so my wife was 5.5 months pregnant, and because of some complications of the twins, we lost them. They passed away. And I remember the conversation from the hospital to my home. At the time we had a teenage daughter. She's grown up now, but I had a conversation on the way home between me and God, and really it was a realization that I was done being my dad. I was done being the guy who, acted like nothing bothered me, nothing hurt. I'm strong as nails. I don't show emotion. I don't show those things in my life because it wasn't doing anything to ease the pain or the grief that I was walking through. And so there was an authenticity of saying, okay, well, if I'm not that guy, if what that image was brought no comfort now at all, then what does it look like to really live it out? It was a spiritual conversation that had its results, but it was this conversation of understanding. Stop trying to measure up to somebody else's idea of what a man looks like. My dad did the best he had, not considering he didn't have a dad that raised him. But at some point, I needed to step into the fullness of who I was, not trying to measure up to who he said I was. I say that to say this, that hurt, being sad, having emotions isn't a weakness. It's an authenticity that allows you to have all of those emotions. I'm a person of faith, and here's what I know. Your emotions are created for a purpose, and there's appropriate in their time. I love strength. I love the fact that I am all in, passionate, just never ending, never die in those things that I'm doing, right? But there's also another aspect to it that my wife relates to as well. That's me being willing to share in those times where something's going on and I'm not feeling at my best. And those times when I am having to, have a conversation and or listen to her with empathy because I know those emotions. I'm just not a blank slate that can't understand where you're coming from.
Sure. Yeah, and it's holding safe place for it, right? If you're helping someone else through it, and then for yourself, I think it's a matter of owning it and not tippy-toeing into it, but like you said, being authentic and owning it and just saying, yeah, this is how I feel right now, and this is why, and this is what's going on, and then it's okay. But I think if you kind of tippy-toe into it with a timid mentality, that's kind of when it's looked at as less masculine, right? But I think, like you said, it's a strength if a man can own it authentically.
No, and I think the thing is to celebrate both. There are attributes of manhood that are irreplaceable, that are necessary, that are a requirement for healthy societies, right? It's the person that's the hunter. It's the person that's going out there. It's the person, I talked to people in the past where, we've had the alarm go off at our home, right? I'm not sending my wife out to greet somebody at the door. I'm going out to see what's going on, right? To do my own meet and greet. So there's attributes of strength that, man, we should celebrate that, but we should also celebrate the fact that guys are being there. Because here's the truth of the matter. With the work that I'm doing, one of the biggest hindrances is us being unwilling to walk into those vulnerable places. And because the truth of the matter is those pains that you've dealt with, that childhood trauma that you've gone through, those things that were said that wounded, you're living from those places. Again, you're either living from who you're created to be or what your life has told you. If you're unwilling to walk into those places and do those things, you're basically limiting yourself to who you believe you are and the outcomes that your life will create.
Holy cow. So what that's heavy. What are some tools or steps that you take for somebody to find out what they are created to be versus living from words they're told, right? Or what's been told to them?
Yeah, absolutely. I love that question. So really, here's the nuts and bolts of it. Setting aside your experiences, your past, the things you've walked through, great and indifferent and horrible. All of those are wrapped up in my life. And the outcomes, right? Your title, your role, your income, and all those things. Setting those things aside, who are you? With the people I work with, I tell them this. I'll start the sentence, you finish it. I'll start the sentence with 2 words, I am. We call it an I am statement. So a statement for me would be, I'm a person of compassion and strength. I'm a person who passionately goes after those things he cares about, who invests in those he loves, and who finishes and completes those things that he has given himself the goal to do. That would be a portion of what I would consider to be an I am statement. It doesn't talk about my past and the excuses or the challenges I've walked through. It doesn't talk about those attributes I have and or the titles, the roles, the diplomas that I have. It's who you are apart from those things. Because here's the thing I noticed, Justin. Many times we're looking towards those things to prove who we are. And in that place, you get to the mountaintop of success in your life and you find yourself just as dissatisfied as when you started. Because just like with me, I thought fear of failure and imposter syndrome would leave once I became successful in business. Come to find out they came along for the ride. The only time they leave is when your identity isn't tied to your outcomes, but tied to who you're created to be. So again, tangible tool, write down an I am statement. Take those two things, the experiences and accomplishments, set those aside, and you have a conversation with you. Who am I created to be? Your character, your attributes, your value, your passions, those are what make you you. Here's the truth that most people don't realize. Who you are is the answer to the circumstance you're walking into, the challenges you're facing, the business that you're creating. It's not the skill set that you've gained along the way. The secret sauce to everybody's success is the character of the person walking into it. That's the one thing that's irreplaceable. And in that place, who you're created to be will give you a higher vision of who you are. So first tangible tool, I am statement. Second tangible tool, life mastery, the definition, who you're created to be. We've covered that one. At the highest level you're created for. So the second thing I would give them the opportunity to invest in is a vision for your future. So for us, there's 5 areas: the spiritual, relational, vocational, physical, financial. Spiritual, relational, vocational, physical, financial. Let's talk about vocational, job or business. So who I'm created to be, I know who that is at the highest level I'm created for. That thing I talked about earlier. What's the impact in the world that has your name on it? Whether it's you in a job and you're investing in this dream of a corporation and, whatever your role is, you're all in all the way. You're doing things that the company's different and growing because of you. Or you're an entrepreneur. What's the vision? What's the thing that's your passion that you want to give to the world, right? That highest level of who you are. What does that look like lived out? Because that's part of the I am statement, is understanding this is what I look like in the realm of business. This is what I look like in the realm of relationship. I'm authentic. I'm open. I'm honest. I'm compassionate, I'm caring, I'm strong, I'm resilient, right? Those things that make you you. The more you see who you are, the more you see that person show up. And if I could pivot back to the earlier conversation, Justin, those are the affirmations that work. Who I'm at the highest level I'm created to be. So we have them write them down because those are the affirmations you tell yourself. Because you can't deny who you are. And if you're looking at the highest version of who you are, it's much different than me trying to imitate somebody of success. Right. If I'm an imitation, I'm only shooting for second place, but I can never lose or be out of first place if I'm really living who I'm authentically created to be. So we use affirmations that are aligned with who you're created to be. We use them as a reminder before you have the negative thoughts, not after they come. And in that place, you'll start to see that man or woman show up at the highest level they're created for. You'll start to show up and recognize that idealized version of you, not the idealized version of somebody else you're trying to imitate, start to show up. And then the transformation happens in a way that is miraculous in many cases.
No, I love it. And then, for you, because I don't think you answered this. Like, what in your life led you to this? Like, I know you lost your 2 daughters. What other things, like either pain or amazement, that said, hey, like this is my calling. This is what I'm supposed to do.
Yeah, that's a great question. I think for me, it was that first part, which was when I talked about my father and having a man that I didn't feel like I could measure up to. Gotcha. And in that place, as a young guy growing up, having that insecurity of, well, maybe I'm not as good as, or maybe I don't have those values. We could unpack a few different, experiences, whether it was my mom's, mental challenges or growing up in a place where academically I wasn't, as astute in different studies as other people were, right? Those identity statements that you take from your life that tell you you're not as good as. So for me, Justin, it was using academics, athletics, and entrepreneurship to overcome those things, right? I'll be a person of value because I'll excel in these areas. And I found out again at the top of that mountain that I was the same guy I was at the bottom, that I deal with the same, except there were greater repercussions, when you have a successful business, fear of failure looks a lot different than when you're just starting out. There's greater dollar signs associated, and employees that are there.
Yeah, the zeros get bigger, don't they?
And the consequences. Now it's not just me and my income; it's the employees that I have in my business, right? And so you can take on that inflated sense of fear if you're using your outcomes to determine your identity. So for me, it was living that out and finding the things that the world says. Once you do this and do that and do this, like you talked about the Instagram guy, right? Well, when I've got those things, now I'm going to be perfect. Everything's going to be amazing. My whole life is going to be awesome. And so through personal development, trying to figure it out, it brought change that brought habits, not transformation. And then in my own faith walk, really figuring it out and figuring out how to really unpack identity, understand those tools that are the levers of success, mastering your thoughts, words, and actions. And again, in conversation and relationships, seeing in other people the exact same things I was struggling with, but knowing that I had a solution. And finding transformation in my own life, I wanted to give it away to everybody I knew. Because I knew that, if you knew this one thing, if you knew identity, if you understood the strategies, your life would be absolutely transformed. You wouldn't just have success, because I know, and you know, people who are highly successful and some of their life is a disaster. Or they bankrupt themselves in some sort of way, because the same thing with everybody. I thought success would make everything change, but really it just added another zip code or another area for me to live in that didn't bring a satisfaction. But when you start to unpack identity,
so
everything changes.
The identity process, because you're 100% right. That is absolutely where it's at. And do you know who Patrick Bet-David is?
Oh yeah, absolutely.
Okay. So like 2 years ago, I started going to his conferences, The Vault, down in South Florida. And 2 years ago, took my son, who that time was 9, and took him down there to watch this. And there was Tom Brady, Mike Tyson, Will Guerrera, a handful of other people, speakers there. But even before they came on, Patrick comes up and he's going through his lessons and things and coaching and all that stuff. And he says, okay, here's the thing. You all are here to take your lives and do X, Y, Z and take it to the next level. But he says, money's a great motivator. It's a great place to motivate, to get you going.
Yeah.
But once you've made some of it, it's not going to keep you going. He says, and he puts like this thing up on the screen, and he says, these are the 7 mountains that move nations and inspire people. He says, here's your homework for tonight, because this was the end of day 1. He says, don't go out and party. Don't go get all messed up and all that stuff. He says, do this for yourself. And the people that do this, you'll have a transformation while you're here. I want you to go to your rooms, and you're going to take your workbook, and you're going to go through each of these 7. And you're going to identify 3 or 4 of these 7 mountains that inspire you, because this is your self-identity audit that you're about to do tonight. And you're going to answer these questions. You're going to go through these steps, and then you're going to come in tomorrow. And it's because of these combos of things are what going to get your ass out of bed when you don't want to get out of bed, are going to keep you inspired when you don't really want to do it, are going to keep you fulfilled, right, when money isn't doing it. And if I can repeat what they are, it was religion is 1, government's 2, sports and entertainment and culture, business, education, media, and I don't know why I always remember the last one. That's not, family. All right. Those are the 7. Yeah. And pick 3 or 4 of those, and in an order of importance for you. And he says, let me give you an example of mine. And he says, I created a successful business because I needed revenue in a successful business, so then I could actually go and put time and energy and money into the other areas that I'm most passionate about. Because he says, I'm standing up here right now, and I don't say this to flex in front of all you people, with $200 million liquid in my bank. Okay. I don't need money anymore. Money's not getting me out of bed every morning. Okay. But I can tell you that government is, right? Because I can't be president of the United States because I'm a Syrian born, but I can help influence it through media. So media is a huge thing. Hence all the media is doing. You can see it.
Yeah.
Then he's got the government, which is another huge passion for him. He's got successful businesses that help drive that. And he says the last one's my philanthropy and family, like family, right? Which is also philanthropy, giving back, helping others, leaving a legacy. And he says those are the ones that aligned for me. He says, and that's in that order. So he says, you need to do the same thing for yourself. And long story short, I mean, I was like in my room bawling, like going through this identity audit, because if you're honest with yourself, you're going to be like, oh, like it's hard, right? To go through this, to kind of get to the other side of finding out, okay, like what are you truly excited about every day that would move you, setting money aside. So, very, very important for people to go through that identity process. And I don't even know that I've fully gone through it yet, but I have a really good idea now, at least what I feel is a good direction. But I think we all battle with it, of battling your past, right? And having it not come up into your future. I think we all do.
Yeah, absolutely. And I love that I think, at least the way I read it or heard it before was the 7 mountains of influence, those areas of influence that, create all of cultural change. And, I love that he talked about that. What are your things, right? We can't necessarily be all 7. We can't be even 2 or 3 at the same level at the same time, because there's an investment of time and resources and all of that. But what is the thing that makes you in those areas? What's the influence you're supposed to have? His or Justin's or Mark's? Absolutely.
Yeah.
And then down below that, I would say this, and what part of you is supposed to be invested in that? Who are you created to be in that area? Right. We can, even in those areas, media, I can try and be Patrick Bet-David or Joe Rogan or somebody like that and be a great imitation of them. But really, what's the secret sauce is the you part. It's not me imitating others, even in the same industry, but what's the unique value proposition in my life that changes the world because of the impact I'm having? And in that place, you stop using somebody else's idea of success and start unleashing yourself in success. As I tell the people I work with, unlocking and unleashing that hero on the inside, the full version of who you're created to be, not parts and portions.
Yeah. And so like for me, I set it in. I said, okay, for me, successful business, because I need a driver that then allows me to do other things.
Yeah.
And then I said, well, I love helping and educating people who maybe want to learn and do what I do. Okay. Education. That's another huge thing for me. I get a lot of fulfillment out of it in helping people genuinely get to where they want to go. Right. In the, call it the real estate investing space. So that's that. And then media is a tool, a vehicle to help, right, raise profile to get there. So media is one for sure. Hence podcasting and talking to people and, networking and the whole media side of it. So now we got, business, education, media is a tool. But ultimately at the end of the day, Mark, it's family, right? Yeah. And not just my personal family though. Like I have a dream to pay off 100,000 mortgages of fallen soldiers and first responders and, personnel that have served our country through the Tunnels to Towers organization. Are you familiar with that one?
No, but it sounds amazing.
Yeah. So that organization was founded just after 9/11 called Tunnels to Towers, and very large organization now, but they were founded, hence the name, to help pay off the mortgages, give a spouse a free and clear home to raise their family in, because they're, typically the husband died in the line of duty. Whether that it started with the firefighters after 9/11, right? And the police officers from 9/11. That's how it started. And then it expanded to our soldiers. And typically you have the wife left at home with 2-3 kids when their husband was out as the breadwinner. Well, now they have no income, but they got a mortgage to pay. So this organization comes in, they pay off the mortgage. They give them, I guess, safety and the feeling of knowing, oh gosh, you have a roof over your head. No matter what, that's the worst case scenario. And very, very powerful. And what they've done now is unbelievable. So that's an incredible organization. And then there's a few others, but I'm very passionate about a few of them, most of them surrounding our military and first responders in the country, for me personally, mostly. So
that's amazing.
But yeah, that's the driver for it all. I mean, but if I could go win the lotto, it would all go to that.
Yeah,
So
absolutely.
that's the point I'm trying to make is the money's there to help educate, fulfill, but then the media, but then ultimately at the end of the day, it's to like go do that. Right.
Yeah, absolutely.
So
And here's the interesting thing, if I could unpack something really quickly. So if I don't, we don't have a deep relationship, we haven't known each other a long time, but here's what I would say. Here's the parts of you that are being invested in each of those. It's service and relationships. In podcasting, in your philanthropy and the things you're doing to help other families. I would say even in your business, probably where you thrive. Again, I don't know Justin versus, Elon Musk or anybody else, but the thing I see in you that I see the identity markers in your life is it's this area of service and building relationships. I bet you had a really, and do still have a really healthy organization, and just from seeing, and the interaction that we're having. And so what's the throughput on every of your mountains that you're working in? It's the identity of who you are. A man who is driven by service, by relationships, and by investing in others in a way that improves lives.
I like that. You just wrote my statement.
But that's the thing. It's so for the people who are starting out in business, it's starting with that. Yeah. Because when I know who I am, I know my investment in the areas that I'm passionate about. Oh, it's in service. It's in bettering lives. It's in building relationships. Cohesive units that really grow an organization or whatever it is. And then, the folks that are on your side is what's the legacy that I'm leaving and what's the me that I'm investing. It's not the outcomes. It's who you are that's creating those outcomes. It's awesome.
Yeah. I mean, I was fortunate enough to go to Pepperdine University. Don't know if you, and it's funny enough, I wasn't going to go there. I was originally going to go to U of A and play baseball.
Okay.
But then I came home over the weekend because my dad said, hey, I want you to just think about it before you sign at U of A to play baseball. And let's think about it over the weekend. You can make a decision on Monday. And came home and I got my letter of acceptance to Pepperdine.
Nice.
Difference there is I wasn't getting a ride to Pepperdine. And my dad's like, oh, okay. Short story short on that is I drive into Pepperdine and at the top of the sign reads, freely ye give, freely ye receive. Freely ye give, freely ye receive. And the statement behind that is you give freely with no expectation of any receipt, but yet you'll 10x it back, right? I mean, we all know that intuitively, but people, there's givers and takers in this world, and you know who they are when you meet them.
Yeah.
But if you give, the law of reciprocity has an amazing way of 10xing you back. So that is kind of when you say service and relationships, it aligns with me in a second. Like I don't even hesitate by saying that's target zone for me, because I know that if I can lead with that, I win. Everybody wins.
Yeah. And the best you shows up. Again, there's Justin or Mark or anybody who's listening to this, there's an impact in the world that has your name on it. And instead of finding outward outcomes to approve of an inward journey, when you start to understand who you are, that investment, it changes the world. It doesn't just change you.
It's incredible. I love it. So, I feel like we could just go on for another hour. What is a goal that you would like to achieve this year in helping people? How can we or I help you do that? In getting the word out, spreading what you're trying to do, helping people find you. Tell me about that.
Yeah, absolutely. What's my goal this year? It is really taking the resources I have and impacting people nationally. I do have an international vision, but obviously I want to have the mechanisms in place in the way that makes sense for growth first. Because this is my greatest joy is when the people that I work with, through the life mastery tools and resources, start to find out that they are living the life that they're passionate about. That it's not just a goal that I'm receiving or success that I'm gaining, but there's this fulfillment of this is literally me lived out. I could do this the rest of my life. And so I tell people that, and I say that right now because this is my rest of my life thing. This is that life passion, that thing you're going to spend the rest of your life pouring into at, whatever level, and whatever mechanisms allow that to happen. So for me, it's getting in front of folks. It's one of those things where, when you get into business, you think you have you solve every problem, but really you need to solve one. And it's the same thing with the work we do. If you're, messages for everybody is for nobody. And so I've invested mostly in entrepreneurs just because there's an easy resonance with me and my background and understanding where they're going and where they've come from. But, in that place, I really want to ensure that entrepreneurs aren't just being successful, but fulfilled. So what does it look like? It looks like a national footprint for me, not necessarily, boxes, the small box store that you're using, but really investing in people and their journey. Because when you invest in somebody who's a leader, you invest in the whole organization.
Yeah. Are you doing more online seminars, live stages, events? How are you getting your message out? And then talk about your book real quick before we finish up.
Yeah, absolutely. So I'm getting my message out through podcasts, through social media, through all of those things. And really the resources I have aren't really, speaking engagements allow you into the journey. So people start to understand, hey, I wrote the book, Life Mastery, Living Life by Design, Not by Default. Because what I found, much like in my own life, a lot of people are living by default, managing the things that they actually can master if they just had the tools to do it. And so that's where it's coming from. And for me, it's the online resources on my website, freedom-for-life.net, and is where I invest in the resources. They're self-paced, but there's one-on-one coaching. And it's really my investment in people's lives so that their lives become what they want it to be. And so I do that through online courses. For sure, I do speaking engagements. I love getting in front of people. Like you said, I could talk about this all day. So, and my book, Life Mastery, Living Life by Design, I have it on my website as an ebook version. You can get it on Amazon simply because you can get everything on Amazon. But I wrote the ebook version because now it's unstoppable for any device, your phone, your iPad, your computer. You can read it anywhere. That's on my website as well.
I don't even know if you know, but the podcast here, Abundance to Give, do you know how it even started at all?
Not at all, actually. We were connected through a mutual friend. So
yeah, I mean, hence the name Abundance to Give. But so my kids love Mr. Beast.
Okay.
Do you know who Mr. Beast is?
Yeah, absolutely.
So this is probably who doesn't anymore? Maybe 2.5 years ago, I'm watching YouTube and like they're watching this guy, Mr. Beast. And I'm like, who is this guy? And they're kind of, oh, you don't know him. Watch this thing. He's going to like give away $10,000 or something like that. Yeah. And I'm like, okay, let me watch this guy. And I watch him for a little bit. I'm like, this guy's kind of cool. I mean, he's coming with a good, purpose. He's just giving away free stuff and, people love it. And he's giving back. So then I kind of went back to how he started, and he was on YouTube, like playing video games. I had like 1,200 subscribers.
Oh, wow.
And then all of a sudden he decided that wasn't working that well. I'm just going to start going around giving away free crap. So I think he went into like Best Buys and Walmarts and stuff, and he would put like blue painter's tape on the ground, cover it with a blanket, go grab random people, bring them over, film the whole thing, and pull it off and say, hey, anything you can fit in this circle in the next 5 minutes, you get. And, it was like, supermarket sweeps, right? I mean, people were running around the stores, stacking things like Tetris, 65-inch TVs and stuff. And, moms are crying because like their kids are getting things they had never had before and blah, blah, blah. So of course it goes viral. And hence the story is what it is. Point being behind that is it was led with that message of, hey, let's create a podcast that rather than me just interviewing you, Mark, about how you became successful and give me the tactics and stuff, because there's a lot of those out there. Why don't we lead with, hey, how is giving and helping others brought about abundance in your life? Hence Abundance to Give. And so that was kind of the theory behind it. And it kind of led me from Mr. Beast to where we're at today. And my dream would be to have him on it. Although I don't know. I mean, we'll see what happens. Never know. You never know.
Yeah, absolutely. Which again goes back to Pepperdine, right? Freely receive, freely give.
Yeah, and you just never know what's going to happen. You leave the door open, but if you lead with service in relationships, which is like you nailed that one on me pretty quick. I do believe that the law of reciprocity will pay its way forward.
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. And at the end of the day, you'll have the life that's fulfilling, not just successful.
Yeah. I love the dogs in the background.
I apologize. Somebody's coming over. That's my...
It adds for some impromptu virtual podcasting. It's great.
Yeah.
So finishing up, like where can people find you? Obviously, let's talk about IG. Can they find you on IG, or what are the major platforms?
Yeah, so Facebook, Instagram, LinkedIn, all of the major platforms. I'm not on Twitter. Haven't gotten much
Do they
traction there.
just
Oh,
search for
so
Mark Collins? Mark Collins.
Mark
I mean, it's a
Collins.
pretty okay.
Yep, and
And
then
then we'll put some stuff in the notes here for people to find you if they want to, for sure. And then go find your book. You can look it on Amazon. What's the name of it again for Amazon book?
Life Mastery, Living Life by Design, Not by Default.
Okay. I feel like I got a therapy session today.
Yeah, it's been a great conversation. I really appreciate it, Justin.